My name is Tan Pak Kueng and my normal match is 291835. We are from Group 4 and wanted to present about the Marginalist School. In this presentation, we would like to discuss the Marginalist School, five major questions and contribution of William Stanley Jevons, Anton Augustine Conant, and Francis Y. Ashworth in developing the ideas of that school. The Marginalist School began in 1871 when Jevons and Menger published their influential books on marginal utility theory. Forerunner Anton Conant and Jules Dubreuil predated them in the use of marginal analysis in economy. Second generation marginalists Ashworth and Clark expand their theories further of marginal utility. This school eventually became part of neoclassical economics or contemporary macroeconomics. Our group will discuss about five major questions and contributions of Conant, Jevons, and Ashworth in developing the ideas of marginalist school in this assignment. Historical background of Marginalist School. Even 100 years after the beginning of Industrial Revolution, the serious economic and social problems remain unsolved. Firstly, poverty was widespread, although productivity was increasing dramatically. Secondly, the extremely uneven distribution of wealth and income created much dissatisfaction, even though the general standard of living was rising. Thirdly, farmer and farm laborers had their difficulties and caused them to migrate into cities to find work. Fourth, business fluctuation affected many people, which individuals could no longer depend on their own initiative and ability to overcome their condition. Lastly, the long working hours, dangerous and unhealthy working condition, the dominant of power of employers in bargaining with workers, rise of monopolistic powers, and insecurity old age caused people to find solutions beyond classical economic thinking. In 19th century in Europe was to develop three approaches to overcome social problems. First, to promote socialism. Secondly, to bolster trade unionism. Third, to demand government intervention in the economy, to regulating the economy, eliminating abuse, and redistributing income. But the marginalists oppose all these three solutions. They support the classical school. Marginalists believe that although the value and distribution theory of the classical economists were inaccurate, but their policy is suitable. The marginalists defended market allocation and distribution. The non-socialism sought to discourage labor unionism as either ineffective or pernicious and deploy government intervention. There are 10 major tenets in marginalist school. First, focus on the margin. Second, rational economic behavior. Third, microeconomic emphasis. Fourth, the use of abstract deductive method. Fifth, the poor and competition emphasis. Six, demand-oriented price theory. Seven, emphasis in subjective utility. Eight, equilibrium approach. Nine, merger or land with capital goods. 10. Minimal government involvement. Focus on the margin. Marginalist school focus its attention on the point of change when decisions are made. It also means as on the margin. The marginalist extended to all economic theory the marginal principles that David Ricardo from classical school developed in his theory of rent. Rational economic behavior. The marginalists assume that people act rationally in balancing marginal benefits and marginal costs, pleasures and pains, and in balancing present against future needs. The method used by the marginalist school had its roots in the works of Jeremy Bentham from utilitarianism. The assume that the dominant drive of human action is to seek utility and avoid disutility, which is mean that negative utility. Microeconomy emphasize individual persons and firms are the focus of attention in the thought of marginalist school. Marginalist school is more considered about the macroeconomic scope like individual decision-making market condition for a single type of good, the output of specific firms rather than considering macroeconomy or aggregate of the economy. The use of abstract deductive method. Marginalist school rejected historical method or inductive method in favor of analytical abstract approach pioneered by Ricardo and other classicalists. Ricardo started with basic premise. After that, used logic to deduce generalization. His tendency is to use restrictive assumption to reinforce his arguments. Partial equilibrium analysis method championed by a lot of marginalist school members was useful for extracting from the complexity of the real world in order to better understand them. Ceteris paribus approach allowing one variable at a time to change while holding all other variables temporarily constant and enable the investigator to dissect complex phenomenon one step at a time. The immensely complicated society problem with its countless variables was thereby simplified, penetrated in orderly and systematic manner. The poor competition emphasized. The marginalists normally base their analysis on the assumption of pure competition. An individual or firm is unable to influence market prices perceptibly because of lacking economic power. Individuals can align their own action to demand, supply, and price through the interaction in the economic market. Demand-oriented price theory. Classical economists emphasize supply as the significant determinant of prices. Marginalist economists emphasize demand as the significant determinant of price. These two will become neoclassical economists, which emphasize demand and supply as the significant determinant of price. Emphasis on subjective utility. According to marginalists, demand depends on marginal utility. The left is marginal utility and total utility graph. Marginal utility is the added satisfaction that a consumer gets from having one more unit of goods or services. The marginal utility formula is change in total utility divided change in number of units consumed. Equilibrium approach. The marginalist school believe that economic forces generally tend towards equilibrium. Even though there are disturbance causes dislocation, new movement will occur to ensure that equilibrium will attain lastly. Merger of land with capital goods. The marginalists lump land and capital resources together. In their analysis, the return of property resources can be in terms of interest, rent, and profits. This has its advantage analytically and also argue the conclusion drawn by some about the land rent is unearned income and an unnecessary payment in order to ensure the use of land. Marginalists generally couple the rewards to the landowner with interest theory. Minimum government involvement. The marginalists support the classical school ideas about minimum government involvement in the economy as the most desirable policy. Marginalists agree with no intervention of government with natural economic laws will lead to the maximum of social benefits.
My name is Po Yung Shun, matrix number 293534, and now I would like to continue the video presentations. Who did the marginalists benefit or seek to be benefits? Beneficial to all parties by providing a better understanding of how the free market system can locate resources more efficiently and promotes economic liberty rather than clarification by a classical school. The first one, workers. The salary received by workers would be equal to their contributions to the value of the output. The marginalists helped counter the Marxian core violations by the proletariat. Second, those who resisted change benefit those who are interested in the maintaining their status quo. The third one, employers. By opposing union and by attributing unemployment to wages that were artificially high and inflexible downward. The fourth, landlords defend landlord against attack based on Richidian rent theory. And the last one, wealthy people, opposite to government interventions that might redistribute income. Next, how was the marginalist school value useful or correct in its times? Development of geometric diagrams as and mathematical techniques. Development of new and powerful tools of analysis, especially geometric diagrams and mathematical techniques. Economic will become more exact social science. The importance of demand in determining prices. It is conditions of demand will given their rightful importance as one set of determinants for prices of both final goods and factor of productions. Classical economy emphasize only on supply as the significant determinant of exchange value. The use of assumption in economy analysis. It is different from the classical school, which negated assumption in their study, and the concept of the assumption was popularized at that time. Partial equilibrium analysis, useful for extracting from the complexity of the real world, allowing one variable at a time to change while holding all the variables temporarily constant, which is ceteris paribus, and it also enables the investigator to discuss complex phenomena one step at a time. The problem of the immensely complicated society with its countless variables was the rabbi simplified and penetrated in an orderly and systematic manner. Microeconomic approach. Microeconomic approach may overlook many problems by viewing the economic as a whole. For example, certain group of people may become increasingly impoverished, although average real per capita income of the nation may be rising. Which tenets of the marginalist school become listing contributions? First, marginalist and neoclassical employment theory. Keynes pointed to the alleged fallacy of composition associated with marginalist and classical employment theory. When one firm cut out the rich, it will become expand its market by selling more goods at lower price. But at the same time, if all firms cut wage, the market shrinking rather than expanding. And this show that the decline in purchasing power among its own employees would not affect it because they normally buy only a negligible portion of its output. So in the Keynesian view, they are alternative means to the reduction in nominal wage to achieve full employment. And the second, pure competitions. Assumption of pure competition is too restrictive to be useful as a competition decline after the 1870. This assumption become outdated as new events transpired and new economic theories developed. The third, marginalists fail to explain economic growth and business cycle. The school failed to explain economic growth and its theory proved to be inadequate, which is not enough for slowly developing country. Business cycle analysis also will neglected in proving that supply creates its own demand, and therefore full employment is the rule. And the fourth is deductive method. The deductive method used by marginalists was static, timeless, and unsubstantiated with the empirical evidence, and it challenged by the inductive method which is by German historical school. And the last one is listing contribution. Despite the criticisms, many of the marginalist theories still can be found in the contemporary textbook on the principle of economics and microeconomics. Among the contributions of the school, which have mathematical economics, the basic monopoly model, the theory of duopoly, the theory of the diminishing marginal utility, the theory of rational consumer's choice, the law of demand, and the last one, the law of diminishing marginal returns, and so on. They have three important economics marginalists, which is Anton Augustin Carnot, William Stanley Jevons, and Francis Why Edward? Anton Augustine Carnot. He active at 1801 until 1877. He is born at Gray, France. He is the French mathematician who published treatises on mathematics, philosophy, and economics. He is the first economist to develop concise mathematical models of pure monopoly, duopoly, and pure competitions, but his pioneering work has neglected until after his death, and when Jevons, Marshall, and Fisher continued his work. Carnot also developed the earliest complete model of what we now refer to as the derived demand for resources. He is considered to be a forerunner to the Marginalist school because much of his analysis focused on the rates of changes to of total cost and revenue functions. His contribution to economic analysis, which have theory of the poor monopoly and theory of the duopoly. Theory of monopoly. Carnot is the first economist to derive the proposition that a firm can maximize its profit by setting a price at which MR equal to MC, marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Total profit will be maximized at the quantity of output where TR is greatest, where at this point MR equal to 0. In the graph A, MR rise below D curve because lower price apply to all liter, not just the extra one sold. Each additional unit sold will add it up price to TR, but if extra unit has not been offered for sales, the price received on other liters will have to be higher. The loss of the potential revenue must be subtracted from gain in revenue through the sales of extra liter. The seller could charge 100 francs per liter, however, he would sell only 65 liters of mineral water, which TR will be 650,000 francs, assuming TC equal to 0. The monopolist will try and error until price settled at 60 francs. At 60 francs, buyers will purchase 200 liters of mineral water and TR will rise to 12,000 francs. This is the monopolist's maximum TR. At the monopolist's maximum TR, which MR equal to MC equal to 0, profit maximizing condition is fulfilled. At graph B, any price below or above 60 francs will reduce the TR. Carnot extended his theory to the condition where MC are positive values. According to him, the monopolist facing positive cost will maximize profit when TR minus TC at the level of the output where MR equal to MC. This rule applies in situations where numerous competitors exist. And the second marginalist is William Stanley Jevons. He active at 1835 until 1882. He is born in Liverpool, England. Jevons studied chemistry and botany at University College London, and he was extremely introverted and did not have great influence on his immediate peers or students. Because of the bankruptcy of his father's business in 1847, Jevons left his study to take up position of a sayer at the mint in Sydney, Australia. He remained there for 5 years, and he published several books on logic and became a professor of logic, political economy, and philosophy at Manchester and later at University College London. He invented a logic machine exhibited before the Royal Society in 1870, and Jevons said that things have value based on how much people like or need them. And in marginal utility, he talked about how important the last bit of something is when deciding how much to use or buy. Famous as a historian of science and contribution to development of index number. The value theory of the theory of political economy by Jevons. In the book, Jevons states that value depends entirely upon utility. To explain Jevons' value theory, we must therefore begin with his theory of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Then our attention will turn to his related notion of rational consumer behavior, individual and market exchange, and the optimal amount of work. Unlike Ricardo classical school, and who might say that the peers have value because people need to die for them. Jevons believed that peers have value because buyers get utility from them. And the last, the specific level of utility associated with the peers depend on the number peers people presently possess. And he talked about important the last bit of something is when deciding how much to use or buy. Jevons on value theory, and this will divide to four main parts, and which is rational choice, the equimarginal rules, theory of diminishing marginal utility, theory of exchange, and the last one Jevons on labor. Theory of diminishing marginal utility. Jevons says utility can be estimated only by observing human behavior and noting human preferences. Jevons rejected any attempt to compare the intensity of pleasures and pains among different people. However, a single individual can compare utilities of successive units of a single good and marginal utilities of several goods. Now imagine you are really hungry and you have a pizza. The first slice tastes amazing because you are so hungry. But as you keep eating more slices, eat additional slice, it doesn't as satisfying as the last one. That's the idea of the diminishing marginal utility. The more you have of something, the less satisfaction of get from each extra bit. It's like the excitement wears on a little as you keep going.
Next is law of diminishing marginal utility. And based on the graph, we can see that the upper graph shows total utility graph and the bottom graph shows marginal utility graph. And we can say that law of diminishing marginal utility happens when marginal utility, which is equivalent to Jevons' final degree of utility, declines as more of commodity X is consumed. And based on the graph, we can say that after 5 units of X consumed, total utility will be declined and marginal utility will be negative. And we can say that the law of diminishing marginal utility happens when after 5 units of X consumed. Yes, that is 6, 7, 8 unit. Yes. And the next relationship between MU and TU is when TU is increased, MU will be positive, and TU is maximum, MU will be 0, and TU is negative, MU will be negative. Jevons' law of diminishing marginal utility solves the paradox of diamond and water that puzzles some of the classical economists. For the next part is rational choice, the equimarginal rule. Jevons employed his notion of finite utility (UM) to formalize a general theory of rational choice. Let's assume that there are two commodities which is X and Y, and the price of the two commodities is the same regardless of use. And we can say that if the ratio of the marginal utility of X to its price is greater than that for Y, then the rational consumer will purchase more X and less Y. According to Jevons, the consumer wishing to maximize utility will allocate money income in such a way that the marginal utility of the last dollar spent on all commodities is equal. And we can see that when MUX divided by PX is greater than MUY divided by PY, consumer will buy more of good X. According to the theory, MUX will decrease and MUX divided by BX also will decrease. And consumer will continue to buy good X until MUX divided by PX is equal to MUY divided by PY. For the MUX divided by PX is lesser than MUY divided by PY is vice versa. And we can say the conclusion when MUX divided by PX is equal to MUY divided by PY, consumer utility is maximized. For the theory of exchange, John Rawls used his principle of utility maximization to explain the gains from exchange. John Rawls also assumed that there are only two trading bodies, which is A only has beef and B only has lamb. Question 1. How the exchange of beef and lamb will benefit A and B two people? According to the equal marginal rule, because A has only beef, so mu lamb divided by p lamb will be greater than mu beef divided by p beef. It will benefit by obtaining lamb and giving up beef. Because B has only lamb, so marginal utility of beef will be greater than marginal utility of lamb. So B will benefit by obtaining beef and giving up the lamb. For the question 2, at what point will the exchange cease? The point at which there are no further possibility of utility gains from exchange, when mu beef divided by p beef equal to mu lamb divided by p lamb. For example, if the price of a pound of beef is 10 times greater than the price of a pound of lamb, for example, $10 versus $1, each person will consume both goods up to the point where the beef has 10 times the marginal utility of the pound of lamb. For example, 100 versus 10 units of marginal utility. And next is Jevons on labor. And recall that Jevons held utility to be the determinant of exchange value. And according to Jevons, cost of production determines supply, supply determines final degree of utility, and final degree of utility will determine value. Jevons, in refuting the labor theory of value, classical school argued that labor cannot be the regulator of value because labor itself has unequal value. It differs infinitely in quality and efficiency. Labor itself is a subjective, psychological cause, a painful exertion. The problem of economics is to satisfy our wants with the least possible sum of labor. To accomplish this, the worker must compare the pain of work and the pleasure of earning. And based on the graph, MUE will be the marginal utility of the earnings and MDUW will be marginal disutility of work. And above line of the horizontal line, that will be measure pleasure and we can say that utility. And below the horizontal line, it will be the pain, or we can say that this utility. At point B and C on MDUW, it equals to neither pleasure nor pain. And when beyond the C, the pain of additional work will increase. At point M, where QM equals to DM, the pleasure gained from the earnings associated with the last unit of work is exactly equal to the pain of the labor endured. Or we can say that MUE equals to MDUW. So M will equal to the optimal amount of work that worker can earn in a workday. Next part, recapitulation of Janvo's thinking. Janvo believed that marginal utility is the determinant of exchange value. A change in exchange value may result from such factors as a change in people's relative preferences for commodities. When exchange value change, the value of the labor used to produce the commodities also changes. Changes in the value of labor wages rates in turn cause change in the optimal amount of work as viewed by workers in various industries. Therefore, asked Jane Voss, how can it be said that labor time is the cause of or even the measure of exchange value? Rather, the value of an hour of labor is determined by the final degree of utility of the product. And the last economist for Marginalist School will be Francis Y. Edgeworth. And he is born at Ireland and he also attended Trinity College in Dublin and studied at Oxford University. He also a founder of the Royal Economic Society and also an editor of the Economic Journal for 35 years, served a term of as president of this statistical Society and was a fellow of the British Academy. He also contribution to economic are found in his Mathematical Physics written in 1881 and numerous articles collected in 1925 under the title Paper relating to the political economy. He also contributed to the economy and his contribution can be found in mathematical physics. And the first contribution is his use of mathematics within the discipline to modern economics. And the second is indifferent curve and exchange. And the third is discuss pricing behavior of oligopolies. And the last one is elucidated the difference between the average and marginal product. This slide will be the contribution of Francis that is indifferent curve and exchange. In his mathematical physics, Ashworth introduced the notion of curve of indifference, which he said show the various combination of two items that will yield an equal level of utility to an individual. Francis drew his indifferent curve in figure 14.1 and used this graph to analyze an isolated exchange between two sole possessors of products, Robinson Crusoe and his right-hand man Friday. Friday has labor x2, whereas Chorus has money x1. Friday, of course, desires some of Crusoe money and Crusoe desire to have the use of some of Friday labor. And this is the graph of indifferent curve. And the indifferent curve 1, 2, 3 represent Friday's indifferent map, and the indifferent curve Roman 1, Roman 2, and Roman 3 represent Crusoe indifferent map. And Friday prefer indifferent curve farther to the east, and the Crusoe prefer indifferent curve farther to the north. And Francis conclude that the price of Friday labor in terms of Crusoe money is indeterminate that is subject to bargaining. Francis also said that at all points other than those on the line ABC, either Friday or Crusoe can add to his utility without lessening the utility gained by the other party. And we can look at from Friday's perspective, Friday can achieve the higher utility associated with his indifferent curve 3 at C without reducing Crusoe utility. Crusoe remain on curve 1, and hence the self-interest of the two traders will push them to the contract curve. Fridays of course will prefer C on this curve because it will place him on the indifferent curve 3, but Crusoe would prefer A because that will provide him more utility than at either B or C point. And the final contract between the two traders in this case is indeterminate. Any point on the contract curve is a possible point of equilibrium, and the final outcome will occur through bargaining. Next is the marginal product versus average product. The graph shows the relationship between total product, marginal product, and average product for a competitive firm operating in the short run. And there's one assumption say that only two input are cost, that is labor and capital. And for the graph A will be the short run production function, and the graph B will be the marginal product and average product of labor that correspond with the total product curve. For the part explanation, marginal product is the change in total product associated with a change in the labor input. Average product can be found by drawing a straight line from the origin to any point on the total product curve. When total product is rising at an increasing rate, marginal product is also rising and is above average product. It is because marginal product is greater than average product is also rising. When total product rising at a decreasing rate, marginal product will fall. Diminishing marginal returns will occur and marginal product will fall below the average product, thus pulling down the average. For the relationship, it is very important in contemporary microeconomic theory. For example, they explain the shape of short-run cost curve for typical firms are the basis for the marginal productivity theory of the demand for resources and underlie the marginal productivity theory of income distribution.
In a conclusion, the beginning of the Marginalist school is dated at 1871. William Stanley Jevons and Karl Mangers published their influential books on marginal utility theory. The Marginalist school opposed the socialist ideology and government intervention in the economy. Instead, they re-emphasized the use of laissez-faire system pioneered by the classical school. Generally, this school sought to advance the interests of all humankind through promoting a better understanding of how a market system efficiently allocates resources and promotes economic liberty. Although the Marginalist school has its own weaknesses, many of their theories still can be found in competent textbooks on principles of economy and microeconomics. For example, theory of monopoly and duopoly, connote theory of values Jevons, indifferent curve and exchange and differences between average and marginal product as word. Marginal analysis apply to the whole body of microeconomy. Progress in mathematization of economics. Only input to the new era of economic thinking, neoclassical economy starting in 1890s, which produced a complete and consistent new macroeconomic theory. So marginalism was only a transitory period between classical and neoclassical school.